Just rewinding a little bit, this was a campaign promise of Donald Trump's. He did say he would move the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Yes, absolutely. And he's not the only one. Bill Clinton did that when he was in campaign. George W. Bush promised the same thing when he was in campaign. And then they both landed in the real world, where, as we've just heard, it's a very, very difficult issue and very emotional issue. And so since 1995, it's been voted in Congress in Washington that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, but that the president can waive the move of the embassy, for another 6 months. And
how did that come about, this act in 1995?
In 1995, there has always been a very strong bond between the Congress and Israel. There is a sort of identification in the story of the two states. There is a strong presence of the Jewish electorate as well among the senators and the representatives. But what is the meaning of recognizing Jerusalem as the capital? I mean, there is no doubt for any Israeli and for most Jewish people and a lot of Americans and maybe French and English as well, that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. But, on which territory? Is it the western part? What about the eastern part? What about the holy sites? What about negotiating, a status for Jerusalem that would be partly international? What I can't figure out, except for electoral calculations on the side of Donald Trump, is the benefit of putting such a light on the Israeli situation right now, when the Middle East is in total turmoil, and there is one country that can unify or give a feeling of unification among all those Arab enemies, Israel.
That's the thing. I mean, there have been warnings from around the world not to do this, and even from some major U.S. allies like Saudi Arabia and Jordan. I mean, is Donald Trump not afraid of the consequences at all? There could be consequences for unleashing violence and doing what some people are calling, is an outrageous move towards Muslims.
Don't you have the feeling, I'm asking you as well, because we're into psychology there, don't you have the feeling that Donald Trump wants to prove somehow that international politics is not that complicated, that people are being too cautious, that, a strong man like him with energies and clear ideas can break knots that have been very tight for the last 70 years, at least? I don't think he wants a war. I think he doesn't recognize the potential for war.
What about the team that he put together, led by Jared Kushner, his son-in-law? How have they been received in the Middle East, particularly in Israel?
With suspicion, mostly. I mean, you know how sometimes we can offend each other by believing that all blacks are alike and know each other and all Jews think alike. And
Jared Kushner is Jewish.
Jared Kushner is Jewish and he's very pious. And it seems to me that in Donald Trump's eyes, that makes him a specialist of anything having to do with Israel and the Jewish state, which is absurd. I mean, Kushner is graduated from Harvard. He works in real estate. He doesn't have a clue or at least any kind of experience before reading newspapers about international relations.
He even recently said, though, that the Middle East was a real estate issue.
Yeah,
perhaps because we're talking about territory being divided up.
Yeah, it is a real estate issue at one point, but it's also a religious, an international, a civil issue, and it's a historical hot button. And, I got the feeling that there was a kind of proximity or identification between someone like Jared Kushner and the crown prince in Saudi Arabia, who are like young and they want to put their mark and they want to resolve things in their own modern way. But even the Saudis yesterday, who have been silent for the whole day, at the end of the day had to say, beware, this is dangerous.
All right, well, thank you very much indeed for your time and your analysis, Nicole Bakahan. Thank you.